What's up guys, Bionic here coming at you with another raid video. Today we're talking about the Dragon's Lair. We want to see if we can make a free-to-play team to farm Dragon 24 with a relative amount of success, if not 100% success rate. And I'm talking about accessible champions only, literally the login champs, anything we can use to get this to work as fast as possible so that you guys can also farm this to get the best possible chance at getting new gear upgrades. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with a run of almost 100% accessible champions, which is Arbiter, Salad Drakes, Grush the Mangler, and War Maiden. Those four champions you're guaranteed to get after playing a certain amount of time in this game, obviously completing some of the missions for Arbiter. And then we have a Frozen Banshee, which is a rare champion, should be relatively obtainable for just about anybody. The reason we have Frozen Banshee in here is because she's a fantastic poisoner for the boss. We do die every once in a while. We can bring these champions back up. Where you don't want to die is on the second wave, so there are a couple of things we can do to prevent that. But overall, this is relatively slow for the waves, all right? We're not nuking the waves here. Really, all we're trying to do is to slowly but surely kill them. We're also trying to control their damage output with like decreased attack from Grush the Mangler. We have our AoE decreased defense within, which is, in this case, weak affinity. Right, so War Maiden is weak affinity. This is not ideal, but she's kind of our only reliable AoE decreased defense champion early on. So of course there are other options which we'll cover in a little bit, but basically this is it for the wave number one. Then we get to eventually the second wave after almost 2 minutes. All right, so it does take a lot of time, I get it. Here on the second wave, what you really want to happen is to get lucky and get those stuns to land. If those two Lurias on the extremities take a turn, they can block revive your champions. You do not want that to happen. That will probably cause you to not be able to finish this run. So this is RNG dependent, but again, there are things we can do to try and increase our chances of that not happening. Same concept here. Good amount of time, reasonable, but still quite long to deal with this wave. So let's fast forward to the boss. It's probably going to be another 2 minutes roughly for this wave, a little bit over 2 minutes again. All right, so it is a little bit slow here. However, Frozen Banshee is going to shine. All those poison debuffs, you need to have the poison sensitivity on, which is why she's not that great for the waves, because it doesn't really happen often. But then when this picks up, it's usually pretty simple. By now, this is a done deal. You also need to get kind of lucky here to land the decreased attack from Grush the Mangler. If you do not, it's not the end of the world. So as long as your Salad Drakes, Grush, and let's say Arbiter are strong enough to survive the hits without decreased attack, you should be all right. Decreased defense is also obviously important, but not as important here because the poisons are dealing all the damage. So it's all about Frozen Banshee. All right, so that's basically it, and we're done in about what, close to 6 minutes, 5 minutes and 52 seconds. For this next run, we're using almost the same team, but we've done two things. We've replaced our Frozen Banshee with our good old starter champion Kale. We've removed War Maiden and we put in instead Bellower. The reason for this is because Bellower is a little bit tankier. You also have your decreased defense. You have an extra option for decreased attack, which is great. We also have more AoEs, and Kale deals a little bit more AoE damage for the waves. Therefore, I would say that probably this is a better option overall. It's still not 100% free to play, but we'll get to that in a second. All right, so here we have a little bit an easier time to deal with the waves, and we actually kill them a little bit faster as well, again because our guy Kale here can actually deal quite a lot of damage. All right, so we're probably going to kill these waves in about 1.5 minutes, so shaving off 30 seconds per wave is pretty good. Same thing here, you want to have enough control to get the stuns on those two Lurias, or else that will cause you to most likely wipe. All right, so we'll get to the gear and how I'm able to do this. Let's fast forward about 3 minutes, maybe a little bit more. So again, about 1 minute and 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute and 40 seconds per wave. For the boss here though, Kale is a little bit slower than Frozen Banshee. Still, we do have some poisons. That is how we're trying to deal with this. You have an added decreased attack from Bellower. With Grush, you should have at least one of them up. You have the smaller version of decreased defense, but again, we don't care all that much about the decreased defense on the boss. It literally is all about the War Master procs and those poison debuffs. So this one is going to be done in about 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Ish, right? So we already shaved off almost 30 seconds. Finally, we have our ultimate free-to-play team, which is, instead of Bellower, War Maiden. So we brought her back in. Yes, you can get weak hits. You might not get your AoE decreased defense, but it's the bigger version of it, so you can play on that RNG. There is another problem to that, though, is that you might get War Maiden to die really quickly if she's geared the way she is right now. You can try to build her really tanky so that she doesn't get wiped by the Lurias on the second wave. You can also play around with the Masteries, which we'll cover that in a second. But overall, this technically should be faster for the wave, so we're trying to see here if we can shave off some time and actually get this down. So we have about a minute and 20-ish seconds to deal with wave number 1, and then for wave number 2, here's where it gets complicated. We're relying on some stuns, but we have less, so we are going to end up losing our War Maiden, all right? So that is basically to show you that, yeah, you will have that issue. It will not be perfect if you're not lucky with the RNG. But the second question is, can you recover from that, right? As I said, decreased defense is great for the waves, but once they're dead, for the boss himself, it's really just about the poisons, at least mainly poison. So is it the end of the world? So I let the run go anyway. Of course, this is all on full auto, and we're still at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds-ish, 15 seconds, so less than a minute and 30, less than a minute and 40 seconds to deal with the wave, so kind of on par with the previous one, even though we lost our War Maiden. And then here we go with the boss. Let's see how quickly we can handle this, and it's going to be done in a little bit more time, but it's not drastically more. So even if you are unlucky and you do lose your War Maiden, you can somewhat recover or complete this run anyway. All right, so now we're gonna go check out the gear of all these champions and see what else you can do to improve this. And we're gonna start with Arbiter, which I've done a dedicated build video on, so I'm not gonna spend too much time here. Here are the total stats. She has a good amount of defense, relatively fast, and high resistance. All the skills are done. As for the masteries, we have timely intervention. Salve the Drakes is up next. I've been running her in a relentless set. I continue to believe that this is the best set for her overall. You can try a stun set if you want. That might still work. I prefer this because of the way her passive works, and you can cycle around hopefully a little bit faster through that AoE stun. Good amount of defense, but this is, if I'm not mistaken, with an accuracy chest and a resistance banner. Again, full dedicated build video on her on my channel, also accessible on the Google Sheets. We have War Master for the tier 6. The next champion to cover is Grush the Mangler. I'm not going to spend too much time here either. I will make a dedicated build video on this guy once I finish the gear, but it worked with the gear that you see right here. I think the important point here is that you want stun. This guy has 2 AoE. Therefore, I believe he's a viable candidate to have that stun set. You also bring decreased attack to the table, continuous heals, and a very important leech debuff on the A1, which will help your damage dealers like War Maiden or Kayle heal themselves because they're not in lifesteal. As for the masteries, we're kind of rocking, I would assume, a somewhat clan boss build. I never got around to trying this guy in the clan boss though. And then we're going to cover the optional champions here. This is where you have a little bit of wiggle room depending on how lucky you are or how early you are in the game. But I would assume if you're trying to take on stage 24 of the dungeons, chances are you have some of these champions already. So I tried to stick to some relatively accessible champions, right? So we have a Bellower in a stun set. I will also make a dedicated build video on this guy. The gear is not fantastic by any means. You just need enough accuracy, relative amount of speed, but also in a stun set. Again, this is a champion that has 3 AoEs on top of bringing all the other debuffs to the table. This is a great champion. So he continues to be on that list of like free-to-play champs that we can use to progress. We have Fearsome Presence, however, for the tier 6 on this one. Then we can cover here quickly our War Maiden. So she's currently geared the same way she was for like my Dragon 20 speedruns before I got Lydia. Therefore, she is squishy. You can optimize War Maiden to be a little bit better for this if you want to make her dedicated. You could try Affinity Breaker sets, for example. That might work. But one thing's for sure, I would boost up her defense by a tremendous amount. I would also make her faster than my nuker. I don't know if you noticed in the runs, but she's slower than Kayle. That's a problem on that first big AoE. You don't have decreased defense, so I'm losing a little bit of time there. Same thing with Bellower. I would try and make him even faster so that Kayle goes after, all right? But overall, high accuracy, high defense is the way to go. All her skills are done, obviously. She's also rocking War Master, again, kind of built for my original clan boss team almost 2 years ago, and I still have not really changed that. Then we have Frozen Banshee, which right now she is naked. That's normal. It's the gear from Kale, which I'll get to in a second. So great skills overall, but the poison debuffs are only applied if there's a poison sensitivity. So for the waves, not ideal. And if you don't have good AoE damage from Salad the Drakes, Crush the Mangler, or let's say Bellower, chances are it's going to be longer for the waves and overall longer for that run. Same concept here for the masteries, kind of War Master clan boss build. We're not reinventing anything. Finally, our Kale, which I think again is a little bit better for this. Now here I'm going to be flexing gear a little bit because I grabbed the best possible relentless gear, offensive gear that I have that's currently on my vein for the clan boss. You don't have to do this. You can do lifesteal, but I think here that overall this will help put more poisons on the boss and should hopefully help speed up the run. All right, so we have 75% crit rate, 247 speed, 227% crit damage, enough accuracy overall. Defense is kind of low, but with the control that we have, you can kind of risk this because you are not weak affinity with Kale. War Maiden, you are though, so you want to jack her stats up as much as possible. Obviously, all the skills are done here. And for the masteries, clan boss build again with War Master being pretty important. Kind of a mix also of, you know, a nuker at the same time. I don't know what I was doing here, but whatever. This can still work. Basically, the point is that you can use accessible champions if you have the right gear, the right stats, the right great haul. Hopefully this will help you guys come up with a build to farm stage 24, because yes, I do still believe it is the best one to do for best overall gear, and I want you guys to get new speed gear upgrades. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.